Communication defined. Communication comes from the Latin word communis, meaning communication. Ibig sabihin, it's about sharing or having something in common with others. So based from Frank Danz o Carl Larson 1976, there are more than 126 definition of communication. Tagalog meaning ang communication. Until now, million exists online showing how important communication is in our lives. Dimension of communication based on Danz and Larson 1976. Danz and Larson explained communication through three dimensions: level of observation, how broad or specific the meaning is, pwede siya general or limited. For example, talking can mean any kind of sharing, from chatting to public speaking. The second is intentionality. Uni ang purpose of communication, kung intentional ba or dili. Next is ang judgment. Judgment refers to how effective the communication is, kung nasabtan ba. For example, if your classmate clearly understand your instruction, that means parang successful inyuhang communication. Characteristic of communication. Communication is dynamic, which means nagbabago-bago depende sa situation or sa mood. For example, the way you talk to your teacher is different from how you talk to your friends or classmates. Next, it is unrepeatable and irreversible. Dili na nimo mauli ang imuhang gisulti. So, think before you speak. So, for example, once you say something hurtful, di na nimo maibalik or ma-edit. Next, it has no opposite. Even if you're quiet, you're still communicating through gestures or facial expression.
So, communication is affected by culture. So, ang communication ani is lahi-lahi og porma depende sa kultura sa usa ka lugar o grupo sa tawo. So, ang simbolo or gestures nga okay para sa usa ka culture, pwede di ay nga insulto sa lain. So, ang pananglitan ana is ang thumbs up sign nga kasagaran ginatan-aw nga okay or good siya sa western countries. Pero sa ubang lugar sama sa West Africa, Greece ug Asia, pwede diay ni siya nga mapasabot og insulto. So, kini nga example nagpakita kung giunsa nato pag-interpret sa mga message depende sa atong kultura. Ang mga Pinoy magod pananglitan dili kaayo direct mo express sa ilang gibati ug mas-subtle ang ilang style sa pagistorya. Ang mga gestures sama sa pahiyom or paghatag og smile pasabot na og approval or respeto. Busa, para mahimong epekto ang communicator, kinahanglan nato nga sabton ug irespeto ang lain-lain nga kultura sa mga tawo atong kaistorya. Influenced by ethics. So, ang communication dili lang basta istorya, it also involves ethics. Ang ethics nagpasabot sa mga pamatasan nga husto ug sayop, ug kini importante labi na sa pagpakipag-istorya. Dili lang kinahanglan nga maayo ta mo communicate, kundi kinahanglan pud nga honest ta, respectful o responsible sa atong giingon. Ang ethics mo guide sa atong decision making kung unsa ang angay nga isulti o kung unsay dapat dikayan para walay lain nga tawo nga masakitan or mainsulto. So sa ethical communication, importante gyud ang pagpakita og respeto sa laing opinion, paglikay sa bakak o pag-take responsibility sa mga giingon. So, communication is competence-based. Daghan nagatuo nga ang maayo nga communication skill daw is inborn or natural. Pero ang tinuod, communication is a skill that can be learned and improved. So, dili na to kinahanglan nga genius ta para mahimong good communicator. Bisan unsa pa atong course or trabaho, makatabang yun kung ato ning i-develop. So, makabalot ta mo express sa atong kaugalingon, ma-improve na atong interpersonal skills o mas confident ta sa pagkipag-istorya sa ubang tao. Pwede nato ni ma-achieve pinaagi sa pag-practice sa speaking o writing, pag-reflect sa atong strengths o weaknesses ug ang pagtuon sa lain-lain nga communication strategies. Communication is being transformed by media and technology. Dako na kayong epekto sa media o technology sa communication karong panahona. Kaniadto mag-communicate lang ta pinaagi sa sulat o harap-harapan nga istorya, Karon pwede na ta maka-store sa daghang tawo sa real time gamit ang social media, email, video call ug uban pa. Tungod ani, mas dali ug mas paspas na ang pag-share sa information apan naapod ni negative effects. Mo ni siyang negative effects. Sayon ra mag-spread og fake news. Dali ra ma-misinterpret ang tone or meaning. Mausab na ang atong communication behavior tungod sa digital world ug mao nga kinahanglan pod ta makabalo mo adjust sa digital communication ug gamiton ang media responsibly and wisely.
Types of communication. So there are 3 types of communication. First is the verbal communication. Verbal communication uses spoken words. Mao ni ang normal nga how we communicate to others. For example, talking to your classmate, teachers, or bisan kinsa. Next is ang non-verbal communication. This uses body movements, gestures, or facial expression. For example, nodding your head to show agreement or agreement. Next is ang written communication. So, sa written communication, kanitong magsulat ta. So, the uses of text, letters, or messages. Mostly, gigamit ang written communication for formal situation like writing an email or essay or love letter. Yeah.
So, dinhita sa goals of communication. Ngano man gyud ta mo communicate? So, mao ni ang mga reasons. First is to inform and be informed. Communication is makatabang nato makahatag ug makadawat og information. Sa adlaw-adlaw mag-asta og questions, magbasa og balita, mangita og directions. Tanan is through communication. So, example, mangutana ta kung asa ang classroom, magbasa sa announcement, maminaw sa teacher or leader. So, mo na siya ang to inform and be informed. So, next is to persuade and influence. Gamit po nato ang communication para makumbinsi ang uban. So, ang example na isa commercial nga gusto kanila mapalit sa ilang produkto or sa debate nga gusto nila mo-agree ka sa ilang opinion. Ang persuasion skill importante kaayo samot na sa sales, politics, and leadership. Next ato is to build and maintain relationships. So, communication ang foundation sa ato relasyon sa pamilya, friends, o sa community. Pinaagi sa communication, ma-express nato ang gugma, kasuko, kalipay, o guban pa nga emotions. Kung wala ti communication, dili ta kasabot sa usag-usa. So, makakos ni og layo-layo, misunderstanding, ug conflicts. So, kung gusto nato nga mapabili ng healthy relationships, kinahanglan maayo ta mo communicate. And last is to develop a career. Ang usa ka reason nga nung importante ang communication kay tungod sa trabaho. Sa karong panahon dili na enough ang college diploma. Ginatan-aw na gyud at sa mga employers kung kabalo ba ka mo communicate effectively both oral and written. So, ang maayo mo nga communicator is kabalo mo present sa iyang ideas, kabalo mo handle og conflict, kabalo mo work in a team, kabalo mo adjust sa audience. So, kung gusto nimo ma-hire, ma-promote, or mag-lead og team, kinahanglan nimo i-improve ang imong communication skills.
The principles of clarity means making sure the message you share is easy to understand and clear. This helps avoid confusions or mistakes. Everyone involved in the communication should use a common language and understand the basic rules of how communications works. Even so, differences like culture might still cause some misunderstandings, which is why being clear is very important when sharing information. The principles of attention means that both the speaker and the message must capture and hold the listener's interest. The speaker should appear confident and trustworthy. At the same time, the message should be important, delivered at the right time, and interesting to the audience. This helps keep people focused and engaged in the communication. The principles of feedback means the person who receives the message should respond to show if they understood it or not. This response helps the sender know if the message was clear and they need to explain it differently. Feedback makes communication better by allowing adjustments based on the message is how the message is received. The principles of informality means that not all communication needs to be official or formal. Sometimes informal communication, casual and relaxed talking works better, especially in everyday situations. For Filipinos, this informal way is often used because they rely on pahiwatig like or hints and pakiramdam or sensing feelings to understand each other clearly beyond just words. The principle of consistency means that our communication should be clear, accurate, and logical so that the message is easy to understand. This helps avoid confusions and disagreements and makes it easier for everyone to work together toward the same goal. The principles of timeliness means that communication should happen at the right time, quickly, and when it is still relevant, just like in news. Old information is no longer useful. Timely communication helps people make decisions and act fast. This is especially important in emergencies like natural disasters, where delays can cause big problems.
Elements of communication. First is the message. The message is content of communication. Ito ang mensaheng gustong iparating ng sender. It can be verbal or non-verbal. For example, saying good morning or smiling to greet someone. So saying good morning, it is example of verbal, and then smiling to greet someone is example of non-verbal communication. Next is sender and receiver. The sender delivers the message, while the receiver interprets or understands it, which means may nagpapadala at may tumatanggap ng message. For example, a teacher explains the lesson, which is siya ang sender, and the student listens and understands it, which means siya ang receiver. Next is the channel. The channel is the medium or way through which the message is sent, pwedeng spoken, written, or electronic. For example, talking face-to-face, chatting online, or writing a letter. Feedback. Feedback is the receiver's response na nagpapakita kung naiintindihan ba ang mensahe na naipadala. It can be positive or negative. So in short, ang feedback it is the reply. Context. Context refers to the situation, place, and time kung asa nahitabo ang communication. So ang context it affects how messages are understood. Like, for example, talking formally in class is different from chatting casually with friends. Next is noise. Noise is any barrier or distraction that interrupts communication. Pwede siya sound, emotion. For example, when you communicate with your friends, then kusog kaayo ang music na dili ninyong ma-hear ang each other. You cannot hear each other. So that's the example of noise. Pwede po siya poor signal or feeling upset. Or feeling upset or sad ka during communication. Effect. Effect is the result or outcome of communication. So for example, after an inspiring talk, a student becomes more motivated to study. So ang effect ato is ang student kay mas na-motivate siya nga moeskwela og tarong because of that inspiring talk or inspiring speech.
Intrapersonal communication is the active internal involvement of an individual in processing messages, where the person becomes both the sender and receiver, providing feedback to themselves. In an ongoing interior process, examples of interpersonal communication include daydreaming, nocturnal dreaming or lucid dreaming, speaking aloud, reading aloud, or repeating what one hears, hearing and speaking at the same time, which may increase retention. Group communication. Group communication refers to the nature of communication that happens in groups ranging from 3 to 12 individuals. It usually takes place in a context that mixes interpersonal communication with social clustering. For example, discussing teamwork and small group decision making all fall under this type of communication. Public communication. Public communication plays a huge role in our economy, society, and politics. Studios use it to promote films, politicians use it to get elected, advocates use it to promote social causes. It's a field built on ideas and images, persuasion, and information. Mass communication is a process in which a person, group, or organization sends a message through a channel of communication to a large, anonymous, and diverse audience. The common channels include television, radio, print, media, and social media. Key points about mass communication. The sender is usually a professional communicator, often representing an organization. It is an expensive process to produce and distribute messages. Feedback is typically slow and indirect compared to interpersonal communication. Computers and mobile mediated communication is a way people communicate using technology like computers, phones, and the internet. Examples include using apps or websites like Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to talk, share, or connect with others. This type of communication is fast and global, meaning you can send a message to someone far away instantly.